How's it going, everyone? Steven Shinder reviews in video form. Another installment of my little series I've got going on the channel titled Planet of the Ape Rule. Get it? Because it's April and ape ruling the planet. Okay, so last time I talked about the 1968 Planet of the Apes film, and that film, like pretty much everyone knows it, or anyone who's like studied film or whatever, like people know the plot beats. So I feel like I didn't spend much time on the plot details. I just went to certain beats and was mainly explaining what I personally loved about that first film and the franchise in general. But for this one, talking about the sequel, the first of the sequels that came after it, we're talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I'll be sort of explaining what I liked and did not like. So yeah, this is definitely my least favorite of the classic Planet of the Apes films from the late 60s, early 70s. After the success of the first film, there were ideas thrown around. Pierre Boulle, the author of the original novel, even penned a script called Planet of the Men, which would have brought back Taylor, and he would have found more humans, which he would have led, and it would have led to an uprising. The ending for what that story would have been pretty depressing, but the ending of the first film was depressing as well. But as people would see, each of these films would have depressing endings, so it became part of the course. It sort of became a staple of the franchise. Now, they did not go with this Planet of the Men idea. In fact, there was a question of how to bring back Charlton Heston. It seems that he wasn't that interested in coming back, and he came back under the condition that his character would be killed off. So that really changes, and it kind of calls into question like how authentic is this as a sequel to that classic film. Organically one would think that a natural sequel to that first film would have logically followed Taylor as he continued his journey alongside Nova, after the big realization that he was on Earth the whole time. So it's really wild to me that instead of recasting the character so that it would still feel like a natural progression of the story, even if Taylor looks a little different, they decide to limit Taylor's screen time and insert a new protagonist who, despite being a different character, his name is Brent. They get this actor who looks like Taylor but is not. And I don't know if maybe it was it in Charlton Heston's contract that they could only bring back that character if it's played by him? Like, is that what kept them from going this route of recasting? Like, I don't know, but it really feels like that they cast James Franciscus as Brent because he kind of looked like Charlton Heston. Maybe they're hoping to lean on his similar appearance and the marketing to draw people in. And of course, Charlton Heston's name was on this poster because he still has a role, however limited, in it. Spoilers for the beginning of this film. He arrives on Earth and his skipper dies. That's the very beginning of the film. It's really frustrating how basically, I want to say the first half of this film is kind of a retread. Well, it begins with the monologue from the end of the first film, setting the tone, reminding us of what the sacred scrolls said about humankind. This is actually the only appearance of Roddy McDowall as Cornelius in this film. There was a scheduling conflict, so they did recast in that regard with him by getting David Watson to play Cornelius. He does sound a bit different. I don't remember if I really noticed the first time around when I watched this back in 2010. I was like 15 or 16 or something. Maybe I knew ahead of time. I don't know. But I think David Watson does the role decently. Kim Hunter is still great as Zera. Maurice Evans is back as Zaius as well. And there are all these protests, apes protesting against, chimpanzees protesting against the orangutans and gorillas who want to go to war. And basically, like, they want to go to war against whatever is out in the forbidden zone. So that's the current status quo as far as ape society is concerned. It kind of seems like Cornelius and Zira are on probation and they're trying to lie low. But anyway, Brent is all alone in the desert after his ship crashed and his skipper died. And again, like, he repeats Taylor's journey. He thinks he's on an alien world. Then he meets Nova, and she is wearing Taylor's tag that has his name. And Brent explains that he was on a rescue mission to come and find Taylor and the other astronauts who were with him who disappeared in space. So Taylor is basically kind of the MacGuffin in this. He's Brent's goal. He's what he was sent to search for. And so he follows Nova. She takes him to the ape city. And Brent, again, he goes through this motions, the same steps as Taylor, discovering that it's a planet ruled by apes. And he actually gets to meet Cornelius and Zara, and they mistake him for Taylor at first. But he's like, no, I'm not Taylor. And they explain how things are like on their world. How talking humans are not the norm, and he would be killed on sight if he were discovered that way. There's a strange kind of thing that happens here. As they are hiding Brent and Nova in their home, and Zaius comes to the door, Zira has this bandage from Brent, and she does a cover story explaining that, Cornelius hit me for misbehaving and something like that. Kind of just shrug it off, and it's like, wait, what? Why is this just shrugged off in ape society? Yeah, this feels like a dystopia in more ways than one. Spoilers for the middle portion of the film. So the apes go to war. Brent and Nova try going to the Forbidden Zone after Cornelius and Zira show them on a map which way Taylor went. But Brent and Nova get captured. But as they are brought into the human zoo, basically, Zira recognizes Brent, and as he and Nova are being shipped out, Zira makes sure that their lock is unlocked so that Brent and Nova can escape this carriage that they're in. And so they escape, and they eventually end up in the New York City underground subway, and Brent recognizes it, and he has that same moment that Taylor experienced, which is he realizes he's been home the whole time. And again, this is the first half of the film, and it's Brent going through the same motions that Taylor did in the first film. This lack of creativity, this retread in the first part, this really lives up to its title. It really is beneath the Planet of the Apes. Yes, I know there's no "the" at the beginning of the first film's title. Calm down. The first half of this sequel is a retread of the first film. You thought The Force Awakens was too much like A New Hope? This is the second damn film in the series, and released only 2 years after the first film. Where it really deviates is the mutants storyline. And no, William Stryker does not appear in this, although he is in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but we'll get to that another time. These mutants have telepathic abilities, and it gets really uncomfortable when they force Brent to kiss Nova, like they're able to make people attack each other. Despite the film's shortcomings, there is still an attempt to get philosophical. This really does emphasize how taking a religion too far can lead to destruction, as this cult led by Mendez is worshipping an Alpha Omega Doomsday bomb, this nuclear warhead. And it gets really horrific when it turns out, this was really surprising to me when I first saw, their faces, they have their own outfits, these enigmatic outfits, and their faces look like normal human faces, but then they remove them, revealing their true forms, their mutated looking faces underneath as they chant in this bomb worshipping church service. I reveal myself unto my God. I bet the apes would be like, unto my God. Meanwhile, the mutants, they create this illusion in the desert trying to stop the apes who are marching to war from attacking, but Zeus sees through this fiery illusion and persuades the apes to keep marching on. The music here is by Leonard Rosenman. He did the music later on, several years later, for the 1978 Lord of the Rings animated film. That film I hold very dear to my heart. I love the music in it. And so I could hear hints of what was to come when thinking of the music for that and hearing the music for this one, for Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Spoilers for the ending of the film. The ending is equal parts bold and terribly depressing. They do find Taylor. Telepathically, Taylor and Brent are forced to fight each other, but Nova finally speaks, saying Taylor's name, and distracts the mutant who was controlling them, and they're able to kill him. But then Nova gets shot. Really depressing. She of all people did not deserve any of this. And Brent tries to get Taylor to snap out of his grief so that they can stop the bomb. The apes try attacking the mutants. Everyone dies, and we're left with this feeling that humankind can never be redeemed. Taylor and Brent get shot. It's very brutal the way that Brent is shot multiple times, and Taylor, who's been shot, pleads for Zeus to help him. And Zeus says, "You ask me to help you," and basically says man is capable of nothing but destruction. And Taylor, basically, like, with his dying words, I'm not sure if he's condemning ape kind or humankind or maybe everyone, but as he falls to his death, his hand falls on this button that activates the Alpha Omega bomb, and we get this chilling closing narration by Paul Faris. In one of the countless billions of galaxies in the universe lies a medium-sized star, and one of its satellites, a green and insignificant planet, is now dead. And when I first saw this, I was in shock. It was unbelievable. It was super depressing, like the ultimate downer of an ending. And the quietness as the end credits roll. It is such a bleak ending. I do appreciate how bold it is, and this mutant storyline was a huge swerve. Just in the context of this film, it feels kind of out of nowhere, and very mixed feelings about it. And like I've already mentioned time and time again, the first half of the film feels repetitive. So you get a lot of old stuff in the first half and a lot of new stuff in the latter half, so you kind of get some whiplash in a way. This sequel was absolutely bananas. It does have a message. It has that message that we had at the end of the first movie about humankind annihilating itself with weaponry and such, and this really hammers that message on the head with a ton of bricks. The plot is all over the place. Maybe if they had put more focus on the mutant storyline, these mutants that are the result of radiation after the nuclear war, then it wouldn't have seemed like such a sharp turn. So my score for this one, take the 9 that I gave the first one, turn it upside down, it's a 6 out of 10. It's okay. There are some things I like. I like how bold it gets, but It's not done in quite the best way. It's kind of all over the place. It really could have ended there, perhaps with fans looking back at these films being like, yeah, that second film doesn't count, but oh, yes, it does. Some franchises like Star Wars and Chucky, for example, would take years to emphasize elements from lackluster installments, but the next sequel utilized knowledge of the end of this film very well from the get go. While Beneath the Planet of the Apes is a downer, it's a necessary step that makes the subsequent sequels interesting. Thankfully, the next film after this one would be a nice escape, as in film, there's no escape from the Planet of the Apes. That's the title of the next film.